Alright, yins guys, I'm gonna do a video response to Demcad's video and to this guy right here too. And just like these guys, if people get offended, so what? And it's not even about offending people, it's about common sense. Hey, a couple of us, when we were younger, we got our asses kicked, and it kept us from getting burned to death by touching a can of gasoline, or playing with matches, because sometimes before the kid knows about getting burned to death, or until later in life, if he sees some movie about a fire, about how movies are more realistic and how people die these days, then the kid learns later when he watches TV, he says, oh, that's why my parents beat my ass and wanted me to not touch gasoline or whatever, But anyway, there are some times that it pretty much needs to be done, and yes, there are a lot of kids that are just cussing their parents out and doing all kind of things like that. And I like to share one quick thing too. I don't know if you guys ever seen an episode of Mad TV or one of them shows. They were actually doing a parody of shit that me and my family and me and some of Ian's guys may have been around, like in public restaurants with people's kids that were doing. They had like a black guy pretending to be, playing the waiter, and then the two parents with cell phones, maybe one dressed like a soccer mom, or, like these typical parents, some guy, yuppie guy in some yuppie shirt or whatever, and they had that were the parents, they had this, and then they didn't use a actual kid to play the bad kid. They had a woman, an actor that was dressed like a little girl with pigtails and pretending about the girl that's being bad and smarting off to the waiter and even smarting off to the parents, and the parents were saying, oh, obviously you're childless and you don't like kids and yada yada. And there was a reason why these shows, I don't know if you remember the show In Living Color and in Mad TV. Yeah, those shows, and I think sometimes even Saturday Night Live used to do little skits like that too. And where do you think they get this shit? They're trying to send the public a message, even though a lot of people say television is propaganda. And once in a while, television is trying to send a message, like somebody in these TV shows were maybe trying to send a message that they're tired of that shit. And some actual experiences like it, like I said, we were in restaurants or in Walmart, and my mother was in a Wendy's one time, a restaurant, and there's the little posts with the separating, that you walk through before you go to the counter to get your food. Well, there's this woman and this little girl standing like right in front in a line with my mother. She's swinging on the separator, the thing, whatever that they use, the little bar. Some of them have a bar and a rope thingy, and almost knocking it over and swinging her feet, kicking my mother in the shins. Sometimes them little kids, they know what they're doing too. They're doing it because Mommy's going to protect me, so they antagonize strangers. And most people with common sense say, hey, knock it off. And then my mother's actually getting kicked and everything else, and then the kids running around screaming. The manager's sitting right there, and my mother says, excuse me, what are you going to do with this kid? And the mother looks, and the mother's some typical blonde that talks like this, like, the ditzy, I can't imitate it right, forget it, I can't imitate it really right. Maybe some of you people that have girlfriends could probably imitate this right, the ditzy blonde that's all smart. She goes and says, looks at my mother and says, with that ditzy blonde tone of voice, ditzy blonde / intelligent tone of voice, and says, oh, I'd expect bad behavior from a kid, but I wouldn't expect bad behavior from you. She's something on that order. She said some innuendo about the kid or something, almost like trying to actually she's in her own mind trying to even things up and distribute the guilt evenly with my mother, like that she felt that she had, like the kid isn't bad or something, that she wanted to try to, in her own weird mind, I wanted to actually distribute some of the badness of the bad behavior, the guilt of it, onto my mother or whoever the hell else it could have been in the front of the line. If it wasn't my mother, it would have been somebody else. And then the manager sitting there looking, and girl's really kind of getting, she's running around screaming. Manager's sitting there just staring, and giving my mother a dirty look because she said something about the kid. But then the manager, after she's screaming and running around, a customer sitting there looking, the manager, and the manager doesn't even do this in a way that he has rights, like that he feels, he don't do it in a way that he, confidently, like he feels he has the rights, which he does. If I were a manager, I would be better about it. He's all going timidly to this woman with the kid, says, about, maybe eventually trying to get the kid to not do that. He ain't doing it in a way that he has the right to. Like with any real conviction, he's like looking like he's all scared, he'd rather, he'll give my mother a dirty look, but then he's looking like this. If a couple of us got together, we'd be able to parody this. If you see the mental picture that I'm trying to give you here, I'm kind of trying to give you a picture of what I'm saying. I'd have to get a couple of people and get somebody to pretend to be that manager, and be all scared, like you're scared to say something all timidly to the woman, maybe, you don't want to offend somebody with a cute baby. You don't want to offend because you look like a baby hater and all kind of other names, you know what I mean? And then, get somebody to play the manager, then have somebody play my mother, you know what I mean? And the manager giving her a dirty look for saying something, and then get somebody to, in this little parody, to play the woman, or maybe get somebody to play the kid. Anyway, we'd have to get together and parody this. If any of us guys that did a video on this, if any of you guys got friends or relatives, what you ought to do on YouTube is do like they did in the movies, like, do it like in the, if you've seen it in any movies, indicated in any movies, or if you ever watched In Living Color, or you ever watched Mad TV, you get the idea. Get a couple of your relatives together, do a YouTube video and parody this, just like they did in them shows. So, that's all I wanted to say.